pilots.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and today with me is Chase from Gateway into Comics, and we're going to talk about the top 5 independent comic issues of 2019. Chase, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Good to be here talking with you.
All right, so I know you like independent comics, and I like independent comics, so we should have a pretty decent list here today.
Absolutely. Most of my favorite picks for actually just the comic books that I've read in general have been from indie publishers. So yeah, this is right up my alley.
Perfect. So you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Oh man, go right ahead. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So these are some of the comics that were great issues, but didn't quite make my list. I had Die, Die, Die number 8, Die number 3, The Wrong Earth number 6, Undiscovered Country number 1, and Kanto number 1. All great comics, but just couldn't quite crack my top 5 because at number 5, I've got Blade Runner 2019 number 4 from writer Michael Green and Mike Johnson, and art from Andres Guinaldo. It's one of my favorite series out there. This was just a great ending to a fantastic story arc. I love Blade Runner. The sequel's not quite as good as the original, but Blade Runner 2019 just fits perfectly into that mythology and that setting, and I love that comic book.
Man, dude, I actually didn't even get to read it, so your recommendation actually makes me want to pick that up.
Dude, it's really cool. It's a mystery. You know, there's a Blade Runner. Her name's Ash, and you know, at first she seems pretty powerful. Then you find out there's some things wrong with her. You know, that she's dependent on technology. You know, like a lot of the people in this setting are, and then she's basically pulled into this mystery about why this girl is so important, and she's put on a case to go find her. And we learned that not everything is as it seems. And yeah, like I said, issue number 4 is just the perfect ending to a terrific story arc, and I couldn't recommend just reading that whole series enough. What's your number 5 issue?
Oh, so this was close. So I only had one runner-up, right? So my number 6 was Undiscovered Country number 1. Which, man, you know, now I'm a sucker for number 1 issues. If I read a number 1 and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I won't pick up anything else. If I'm just a little bit wary about it, I won't touch it. The rest of it, it's very difficult to pull me back into it. So my number 5, and here's the problem. So I am not caught up with Oblivion Song, right? And this issue feels like it may have come out in 2018, so it might be a lie, but it's the number 1 issue from Oblivion Song. And if it's not that one, then it's the last one in that story arc that's my favorite. So I
believe that is 2018, because I was reading that when I stopped. I think issue 9 came out in like April. I might be wrong.
Yeah, so I would have to say that then I would have to say if 2019 it was the last in the first story arc was my favorite, and I don't remember which issue that was, but I'm telling you, Oblivion Song is just fantastic. Like I said, I'm not caught up, but from what I see, it continues to be good. I need to pick up the newest trade when it comes out because I'm not buying issue to issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, Robert Kirkman is definitely the best-selling independent writer of 2019, you know, with his Walking Dead issues. And yeah, Oblivion Song was great. It's this weird, like, other realm that these people got sucked into, and this guy's like going back to save his brother, and you know, is it the right thing to pull him back? There's a lot of really cool like moralistic questions in that comic.
Absolutely. I really loved the symbolism of that memorial. That was such a big part of that whole series, you know, looking back at it, that memorial that shows the list of everyone dead, and he would go back to it and take something metal and just scrape out the names of the people that he had rescued from the other world who weren't dead. That was just fantastic. That was exactly the right way to show that all these people, they were caught up in just letting everyone die in this otherworldly place that they had to go to save all these people. It was really cool.
Excellent choice. Yeah, Oblivion Song is one of the underappreciated indie comics out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for our number 4 issues. My number 4 is Middle West number 4 from writer Scottir Young and artist Jorge Corona. It's the issue where Abel, he's full of rage. He basically inherited it from his father. He can't control it. He's out on his own because he's got a troubled household. And he finally meets his new family in a carnival, and he meets his new best friend and a crazy, fun robot that kind of has a quirky personality. It's one of my favorite issues of all year. It's such a delightful comic to read, and I like that he discovered a new family.
Dude, that was a great issue. It took a full circle back from one of my favorite issues that I'm going to talk about. Because, well, I'll get to that, but because of what happened in the first issue, it really does. It means a lot, and it makes it emotional. It shows, and he is a very emotional character. Abel is, and for him to find that new family, it was really good writing. I'm telling you, I love Scottir Young. It got me hooked on his stuff, and I can't wait for his new series when it comes out. Same thing with Kirkman. They're both going to be great, and I'm going to pick them up.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for Kirkman's Die to come back. But that's great satire in that comic. But I had a chance to talk about Die, and I didn't do it. Now, what's your number 4 comic?
So this is really off the books, right? And here's what I expect. This is a book that is going to be published by Antarctic Press eventually. I can almost guarantee it, but it hasn't been published yet, right?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And that's a little bit different than, a lot of the traditional kind of independent comic books. This is one of those that was put through crowdfunding, and it was just really good, and it was the plotting that I love so much. So this was by a new writer named Douglas Ernst, and it was Soulfinder, Demon's Match. And the way that I'd kind of like to, scope this one out is if John Constantine was a good guy and a priest instead of just a slumdog warlock with a bad mouth, is really what it is. We're talking about the same kind of fighting demons, only as a priest. It's pretty cool. I really liked I will say this, the plotting was absolutely fantastic, and that's what caught me about it. I said, this is an incredible story. And now I say that because it felt like a plot driven story. I talk about writing a lot in my videos because I've written short stories most of my life, and that really just appeals to me. I was a theater major, and my favorite thing about theater was actually writing plays. And, I will say this, I think that the character development was a little bit kind of lower than some of the other books that I've read, but the plotting was so perfect that it made me really love this book a lot. It was fantastic.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't read this one because I did back the campaign because I do know Doug. But he's actually coming here to the Philippines, and I'm going to get my copy in about 3 weeks. So I'll finally get to read Soulfinder myself. I can't wait. I was a huge supporter of it. And, I did a couple of videos on why I thought people should back it. Really interested in finding out that backstory with Father Redder, maybe what some of those scars mean and how they've affected him. Looks like it's going to be great.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing it published in stores too.
Oh, so you got me frothing at the mouth here for some Soulfinder.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to my number 3 comic issue, independent comic issue of 2019. These Savage Shores #1 from Ram V, Sumit Kumar. The comic that basically drew me over to Vault Comics. Vault's probably my second favorite publisher after Alterna right now. Just in a fantastic a story, just immaculate art, perfect writing, and the twist on the end is just so well done. You come in here and you think it's a vampire story, and then all of a sudden it switches settings over to India, and you're like, oh, vampires invading India. This is going to be interesting. And that's not exactly what it is, because there's monsters waiting in India that I personally didn't know about. I don't know about all the lore of monsters in India. So when you see those two worlds collide and kind of that last image where you finally get the reveal, just a fantastic comic issue. If you haven't read These Savage Shores, I can't recommend it high enough. Oh, it's such a great story.
Yeah. I haven't read it, but like I said, I'm going to.
And he's also, this is basically the comic book that got him the writing gig for Justice League Dark on DC Comics. So
fantastic.
that'll tell you, yeah, this is the horror book that got him that jumping on point to the big two, and it's well earned. It's, as a writer yourself, I think These Savage Shores will actually blow your mind away.
Yeah. So, well, I look forward to checking that out. So, my number 3 comic book just came out last week. It was absolutely fantastic. So I've really been loving Once and Future. And so this is kind of like, it's a story about what if we brought back King Arthur from the dead, but what if he wasn't the good guy, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you what happens in issue number 5, but the biggest thing about this comic book, and this is Kieron Gillen again, I love his writing. He just does really good work. And the biggest thing about this every single issue, honestly, is that there's a huge unexpected story turn, pretty much almost at the end of every issue, or pretty close to it. And you're like, whoa, did that just happen? This past week, we saw the week before that, we saw the most two in a row. So I would have to say that number 4 and number 5 are almost the same feeling that I got from it. And, I think the biggest thing is that in writing single issue comics, there either has to be a huge emotional reveal or something happens that's, gripping. And this book really delivers, writing for the serial format where something happens very jostling at the end. This threw it over the top, and it made me say, well, I'm going to pick up the next story arc. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. People that are into Arthurian legend and that are really into that want to see a new take on it, absolutely. That's the comic for them. I think that's from Boom Studios, correct?
It sure is. Yeah.
Boom's been hitting it out of the park lately. They got a lot of good comics out. So, all right. So now we're on to number 2. I love this. I love this issue from Image Comics, Criminal number 5 from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It introduces the private detective Dan Faraday to the world of Criminal, to the lawless family. And we know from issue 1 of this run of Criminal that eventually Teague Lawless, who's been, one of the main characters in all their Criminal books, is going to die at the end of this issue. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be Dan Faraday. It was just such a good introduction to the character. You get to learn some of his history. He's a Vietnam vet. He tried to be a police officer, but he was on the take. He was dirty. He wasn't cut out for life on the beat. He was always trying to get that extra dollar. So he's kind of a bit of a grimy character. He fits right into the world of Criminal. And I just think the way that Ed Brubaker fleshed that character out, immediately I liked him. I wanted to see what he was going to do. And I was like, I hope he's the one that kills Teague Lawless, because he was done dirty in that comic book. And love Criminal number 5.
Fantastic. Yeah, I haven't been reading Criminal either. That's probably Criminal from all my friends telling me how good it is.
Oh yeah, I got to go back. I haven't read the other trade paperbacks. I think they were done in actual graphic novels before they actually released these in by issue. So I'm definitely going to be going back once this series is over and reading the other ones.
Awesome. So my number 2 placed single issue comic book is, and like I said, I'm a sucker for number 1 issues. Something is Killing the Children, number 1 by James Tynion and Werther Dell'Edera. Man, I love this book. The book's incredible, but this takes my number 2 place for a single issue. And, I'd say specifically because it really introduces the world and what we're going to be involved with. It does really good character development for the kid. And just in this one single issue, you get to find out. Here's the thing that I really liked about the book overall. James names the main character after himself, James. And I've done that with the main character. And whenever you do that, it changes the meaning of what that story is for you. And I can see how intense he feels, the main character of this story, just by writing it this way. It's really cool.
Yeah, that first issue was really gruesome. Like, and I think he needed to be that because the kid James is emotionally traumatized, and he's having to overcome his fears of and come to grips with what he saw happen to his friends. And I give kudos to the art direction that James gave and the execution by the artist to actually put that in the book. It would have been a lot easier to kind of hide some of that stuff, but you need to know what this kid's been through to know what's driving him forward. And I like the way that it was executed. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. So is it time for our number one independent comic issues of 2019?
Yep.
All right. So a lot of these big milestone issues that are supposed to be celebrations, they kind of fall flat. I thought Action Comics 1000 was pretty okay, but not exactly what I expected. Same thing with Detective Comics 1000. It was better, but not quite what I expected. Spawn 300 delivered for me on every level. I just thought it was an amazing story. You got Todd McFarlane writing in the majority of the story, Scott Snyder filling in and writing the portion of the comic that he actually illustrated. Greg Capullo coming back to the comic that made him a star. J. Scott Campbell drawing sequential art for the first time, and I don't know how long. Jason Sean Alexander on there, Jerome Pena, just a fantastic art team, and I think it paid homage and pushed the Spawn legacy forward with a fantastic story. I couldn't believe that they actually hit Spawn 300 out of the park, and it's for me, it's a no-brainer for my number one independent comic of 2019.
I love that issue. I think the biggest thing about it for me was that I'm a sucker for surprises at the end. It was the very last reveal of what happens. Hey, look, every single time y'all try to do a bunch of spells and magics, something bad's going to happen, or you're going to get some sort of repercussion. And what happens because of that in turn is so cool. It's like, man, you shouldn't have messed with magic.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Just seeing Greg Capullo back on Spawn when he does that. The picture of when Spawn's emerging from the initial explosion and he's putting his armor back together. Such a burn in my head. It's such a good image. And it's just like a visceral feeling just looking at it.
It really brought back the feels from the 90s, it really did. And it encapsulated the series really well. That the raw feeling of the art was really good too, Awesome. So my number one comic, and this is, it's another number one. It's like I said, I really am a sucker for these. If a number one doesn't grip me, I won't read the rest of it. And you have to set the whole mood for the series and for it to be really great, in my opinion. And I have to say it's Middle West number one. I have to say that was my very favorite book because, the main character, Abel, it shows, and look, this is a book about a kid that comes from a broken home and him having to come to grips with the fact that he has a power inside of him that can be used for good or bad. And that he is very much like the person who hurt him. And showing that from the start, it's really fantastic to see the emotion that it captures, in the art, in him, in his own actions, in Abel, but being cast out by the only person that was there for him. Absolutely, my highest recommend is Middle West. The first time I read that book, that number one, I sat down in a chair. I seriously, after I finished that number one book, I sat down in a chair. I put that comic book next to me, and I just took a deep breath, and I was like, I got to read that again.
That's the best kind of comic, man.
And when you say that, when that happens, and I have that feeling, I'm like, oh, this one's going to stick with me. And that's what's, it kept me coming back to that series, really good stuff. So that's definitely my number one pick.
I remember reading it, the story's it's powerful. It's basically setting the stage for why he has this monster inside of him, where he got it from, all the things that have happened to Abel. But in the art, there's all these these pink things on everything, and you're like, what is that? You're kind of like, it is always throughout the thing, and they're finally this week, they're kind of explaining what all that is and everything. And I like, because I've been thinking the whole time, it's like, what? It's important, and it's finally coming to fruition, and they're really paying off like a mystery that they open up in that first issue, and I've always loved that.
Oh yeah. When things like that are planned throughout long term, it's like the whole planning that Claremont did for his X-Men run. It was just amazing the way that he planned for it. I feel like Scottir Young has been doing that this whole time with his writing for Middle West, and that's impressive. And it makes me love the #1 issue even more. I read that book, the #1 issue of Middle West, maybe about 5 times this year. So, it's my #1 comic.
Also,
sure.
we have to mention like the fox is like the smart like Jiminy Cricket. It's always trying to get him out of trouble. He's giving him good advice. Trying to keep him. And just a great sidekick character that you really feel for the Fox, and it's hard to do in a book like that.
I know, it's so weird that you come to love, a talking animal almost as much as the main character, and it's good writing when someone's able to do that to you. I guess it really throws the feels at you. Even the Fox does. That's really cool.
Absolutely. So I think that'll do it. Those are our top 5 indie comics for 2019. If you have an indie comic that you think is better than the rest and we didn't mention it, make sure and put it in the comments section. So Ash. So Chase and I can go read those. We can talk about it. Maybe discover some more independent comic gems that we haven't read yet, because there are so many great independent comics out there. It's really hard to actually read them all.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.